They said the earth itself had sealed the truth. For 100 years, a small village whispered about a love so forbidden that it had to be buried, not just in memory, but beneath the ground. People claimed that if the secret ever surfaced, families would lose their honor, names would disappear, and one woman's sacrifice would finally be understood. But what is truly terrifying is not the secret itself. It is the cost of keeping it. Because one man grew up believing his life was ordinary, unaware that his existence was proof of a love that was never supposed to happen. And the question no one dared to ask was simple. What happens when a century-old lie refuses to stay buried? He did not come to the village looking for answers. He came to escape noise. The kind that follows you through cities. The kind that hums inside your chest when life feels unfinished. He rented a small wooden house on the edge of the rice fields, where mornings smelled of wet soil and evenings settled into long, aching silence. The villagers watched him quietly. Not with suspicion. With recognition they did not explain. He noticed it in the way conversations stopped when he passed. In the way elders studied his face as if comparing it to something they remembered but could not place. At night, the wind moved through the trees like a low whisper. He lay awake, listening. Wondering why this place felt familiar. He told himself it was imagination. Fatigue. But some nights, a strange heaviness pressed against his chest, as if the air itself carried emotion. Loss. Regret. Love that never found a voice. 3 days after he arrived, an old woman approached him at dawn. Her hair was silver. Her eyes sharp. She did not greet him. She simply said his name. He froze. He had not told anyone who he was. She nodded, as if confirming something to herself, then walked away. That moment lingered. Like a note held too long. And he felt it then. The first pull of a story that was already unfolding. He spent his days wandering the village paths. Watching children run barefoot. Listening to distant laughter. Every sound felt layered, as if the present rested on top of something older. Something unresolved. In the village center stood a banyan tree. Massive. Ancient. Its roots spilled across the ground like frozen rivers. People avoided sitting beneath it. When he asked why, a shopkeeper shrugged. Old memories, she said. Nothing more. That night, rain fell hard. The sound on the tin roof was deafening. Suddenly, the power went out. Darkness filled the room. And in that instant, everything changed. He smelled jasmine. Strong. Overwhelming. A scent he had known before. But when he stood up, the floor felt cold under his feet. The air seemed to thicken. Then he heard it. A single, soft breath behind him. He turned. Nothing. The next morning, he woke with a strange certainty. This place did not just feel familiar. It was connected to him. Somehow. He began asking questions. Careful ones. About the banyan tree. About the old families. About a woman whose name appeared in faded carvings near the temple ruins. Each time, the answers ended the same way. Silence. Or a change of subject. Or eyes that looked away too quickly. Meanwhile, something else stirred beneath the surface. The elders met at night. Low voices. Long pauses. One of them said, "He looks like her." Another replied, "The past does not stay buried forever." No one disagreed. One afternoon, as the sun burned low and the fields glowed gold, he found a stone marker near the banyan tree. Half hidden. No name. Just a date. 100 years ago. His fingers brushed the surface. It was warm. Too warm. And suddenly, a wave of emotion hit him so hard his knees buckled. His heart raced. His breath shortened. Images flashed. A woman running. Tears streaking her face. A man reaching out. Fingers almost touching. He pulled his hand back, gasping. Have you ever wondered why some places feel heavy? As if they remember more than they should? That night, he dreamed of fireflies swirling in the dark. Of whispered promises. Of a love that had to hide in shadows. He woke with tears on his face and no memory of why. But his chest ached like it had been broken and repaired badly. Days passed. Or maybe weeks. Time felt strange here. One morning, the old woman returned. She sat across from him without asking. Her voice trembled, but her gaze did not. "You deserve to know," she said. He waited. Silence stretched between them, thick and unbearable. Then she stood up. "Come tomorrow. Before sunrise." He did not sleep. Before dawn, the village was hushed. Mist curled along the ground. She led him past the fields, toward a small hill. At the top stood a crumbling shrine. Inside, dust coated everything. Cobwebs hung like veils. She knelt. Her hands shook as she moved a loose stone. Beneath it was a box. Old. Wooden. She opened it. Inside lay letters. The paper was brittle. The ink faded. But the words burned. They spoke of a young woman from the village. Intelligent. Curious. And a man from a powerful family who was promised to someone else. Their love was not violent. Not reckless. It was quiet. And that was the danger. Because quiet love endures. The village discovered them. Not in anger. In fear. Fear of shame. Fear of disruption. Fear of change. So they made a choice. They separated them. Sent him away. Told her he had abandoned her. She carried his child in secret. Gave birth alone. And then, to protect the child, she did the unthinkable. She gave him to another family. Erased herself from the story. She stayed. Watching from afar. Loving in silence. Until she died beneath the banyan tree, her secret buried with her. The old woman's voice broke. "She was my grandmother." He could not breathe. His hands trembled. His mind raced. This story felt too close. Too personal. His chest burned. And then the final letter. Written in a hand he recognized without knowing why. It was from the child. Grown. Searching. Never finding her. Ending with one line. "If you are reading this, I existed because of you." The room went quiet. He realized the truth then. Not slowly. All at once. He was not a visitor. He was the proof. He was the child's grandson. The bloodline that was never acknowledged. The reason the village watched him with recognition. The reason the earth felt heavy. The reason his heart ached. This changes everything forever. Silence followed. Long, heavy. The kind that forces you to pause. To rewind. To breathe. Outside, a bird cried out. Sharp. Sudden. He felt dizzy. The floor seemed to tilt. His thoughts screamed. I misunderstood everything. His life. His restlessness. His pull toward this place. It was not random. It was inherited memory. Love passed down like a wound that never closed. He stumbled outside. The air was cool. His skin prickled. He walked to the banyan tree. The roots twisted around his feet. He knelt. Pressed his palm to the earth. Tears fell freely now. Uncontrolled. He whispered words he did not know he carried. Apologies. Gratitude. Love. And in that moment, the heaviness lifted. The village gathered later. No accusations. No anger. Just quiet acknowledgement. The elders bowed their heads. One of them spoke. We were wrong, he said. That was all. Weeks later, a small stone was placed beneath the tree. A name carved clearly. No longer hidden. No longer forbidden. He stayed. Some nights, when the wind moves just right, the jasmine scent returns. Gentle now. Peaceful. He smiles. Because love, even when buried for 100 years, finds a way to breathe again. He began to notice the changes slowly. Not in grand moments. In details. The way the air felt lighter when he walked through the fields at dawn. The way villagers now greeted him without hesitation. The way children laughed freely beneath the banyan tree, no longer pulled away by anxious hands. It was as if something unseen had finally been exhaled. 3 years passed. In that time, he learned the rhythms of the village. Planting seasons. Monsoon rains. Quiet festivals held without announcements. He restored the small house where he first stayed, sanding the wood with his own hands, feeling the grain warm under his palms. At night, he wrote. Not letters. Memories. Some his own. Some that surfaced unexpectedly, arriving with emotions too specific to be imagined. But nobody knew this. Each time he wrote about her, his chest tightened. Not grief exactly. Something softer. Something earned. He described a woman he had never met, yet missed deeply. Her patience. Her courage. The way she chose love without recognition. The way she disappeared so that a child could exist freely. One afternoon, while repairing the shrine, he uncovered another stone. Smaller. Cracked. Beneath it was a folded cloth. Inside, a simple bracelet made of woven thread. When he touched it, his breath caught. The texture was rough. Handmade. Imperfect. He felt a sudden warmth spread through his arms, followed by a pressure behind his eyes. His body reacted before his mind could catch up. Suddenly, he laughed through tears. Not because it hurt. Because it made sense. Have you ever felt gratitude for pain that did not belong to you? That night, the village gathered quietly near the tree. No ceremony. No speeches. Just presence. Someone lit a small lamp. Another placed flowers. The silence was deep but not heavy. It felt respectful. Complete. He stood there, hands clasped, heart steady for the first time in years. Then a young woman stepped forward. She had arrived months earlier, drawn by work that brought outsiders occasionally through the village. She rarely spoke. Always observed. He had noticed her once, standing at the edge of the fields during sunset, her hair catching the light. When their eyes met, something flickered. Recognition. Or curiosity. Or timing. She spoke softly. Her voice trembled just enough to be honest. Some stories wait, she said. Not because they are weak. But because they are strong enough to survive silence. Her words landed hard. Pause-worthy. He felt it in his spine. A stillness. As if the world had leaned in closer. Later, they walked together. No rush. Fireflies blinked around them. The air smelled faintly of jasmine again. He told her everything. Not with drama. With truth. She listened. Did not interrupt. When he finished, she reached for his hand. Her touch was warm. Grounding. Hope surged. Then fear followed immediately. What if love repeated itself? What if history demanded the same sacrifice? The thought made his stomach twist. His pulse quickened. His shoulders tensed. He realized how deeply the past had shaped him, even before he knew it existed. He was not afraid of loving. He was afraid of losing without permission. She sensed it. Squeezed his hand. We are not them, she said gently. We remember. That changes everything. Replay worthy. Because remembrance was the difference. Another year passed. They built a life that felt intentional. Simple. Honest. When disagreements came, they faced them. No silence. No secrets. The village watched with quiet approval. Some smiled knowingly. Others looked relieved. As if witnessing a story finally written the right way. But the past was not finished yet. One evening, during a violent storm, thunder cracked so loudly the ground seemed to shudder. Rain lashed the earth. He woke abruptly, heart pounding. The room smelled strongly of jasmine. Too strong. He sat up, breath shallow. The lamp flickered. Then went out. Darkness. A voice filled the room. Not heard. Felt. Do not forget me. His skin prickled. Goosebumps rose along his arms. He whispered into the dark, I have not. The air shifted. The pressure eased. The storm softened. When morning came, sunlight spilled across the floor. Calm. Settled. That was the last time the scent returned so intensely. Years layered themselves gently after that. The village changed. Roads improved. Younger generations left and returned. Stories were told openly now. Not as warnings. As lessons. Children learned about the woman beneath the tree. Not with shame. With pride. One afternoon, he stood watching his own child play near the roots. Small hands tracing the curves. Curious eyes wide. His chest tightened again. But this time, it was full. Complete. He felt the weight of time not as a burden, but as a bridge. He understood then. Love does not demand recognition to be real. But it deserves truth to be free. The past had asked for silence. The present answered with memory. And the future stood watching. Barefoot in the grass. Unafraid. Years moved differently after that. Not faster. Not slower. Just deeper. He noticed it on quiet mornings, when he woke before everyone else and sat outside, feeling the cool wood beneath him. The sky would shift from dark blue to pale gray. Birds would test the air with tentative sounds. And in those moments, his chest felt steady. No ache. No pull. Just presence. But memory has a way of resurfacing when you least expect it. One afternoon, while helping repair an old storage house near the fields, a section of wall collapsed. Dust filled the air. Someone coughed. Wood cracked sharply, breaking the calm. When the dust settled, something was exposed behind the wall. A narrow compartment. Sealed. Forgotten. He froze. His hands went cold. His pulse thudded hard in his ears. The others laughed nervously, brushing off debris, unaware of the shift inside him. He stepped closer. Slowly. His fingers traced the edge of the opening. The wood was splintered. Old. Inside lay a small bundle wrapped in cloth. The moment he touched it, a wave of sensation surged through him. Heat in his palms. A pressure behind his eyes. His stomach tightened. He knew, without knowing how, that this mattered. Sudden silence followed the noise. A pattern interrupt that none of them planned. He unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a photograph. Black and white. A young woman stood beside a banyan sapling. Her face calm. Determined. And beside her, just barely visible, a man's shadow stretching toward her but never touching. Written on the back, in careful handwriting, were words that made his breath hitch. For the day truth is allowed. His knees weakened. He sat down hard on the dirt floor. His hands shook. His thoughts raced. Why was this hidden here? Why now? The villagers gathered quietly. No one spoke. They felt it too. That this was not coincidence. That some stories reveal themselves only when the listener is ready. That night, he could not sleep. Rain tapped softly against the roof. The familiar scent of wet earth filled the room. He stared at the ceiling, heart restless. A question pressed against his mind, urgent and unavoidable. What if the story was not finished because it was not meant to end with him? In the early hours before dawn, he rose and stepped outside. The world was hushed. He walked barefoot toward the banyan tree. The grass was cool. Dew soaked his feet. When he reached the roots, he sat, resting his back against the trunk. I am listening, he whispered. The wind moved through the leaves. Slowly. Deliberately. Then, clarity came. Not as a voice. As understanding. The woman had not only hidden her love. She had hidden her choice. She stayed not because she was forced, but because she believed someone had to remain to remember. Someone had to anchor the truth, even if it meant living without being seen. That realization hit him harder than the revelation of bloodlines ever had. His chest tightened. His throat burned. Tears slid down his face unchecked. She did not disappear. She endured. This was the replay-worthy truth. At sunrise, he returned home and began writing again. But this time, not just for himself. He wrote the full story. Every detail. Every sacrifice. Every quiet decision. He did not soften it. He did not dramatize it. He honored it. Months later, copies of the story appeared in neighboring towns. Not as legend. As history. People came to read beneath the banyan tree. Some cried. Some sat in silence. Some held hands tighter afterward. One evening, as he watched the sun sink low, his partner stood beside him. She leaned her head on his shoulder. He felt the warmth of her weight. The steady rhythm of her breathing. "You look lighter," she said. He nodded. "Because I stopped carrying what was never meant to be hidden." They stood there quietly. The past no longer demanded anything. It had finally been seen. The first time he noticed strangers arriving without asking questions, he understood the story had crossed an invisible line. They came quietly. One or two at a time. Some stood beneath the banyan tree for a long while before leaving a flower or a folded note. Others asked to see the shrine. No one argued. No one hurried them. The village adapted, not by changing itself, but by opening its hands. Time jumped again. 10 years passed. His hair showed faint strands of gray now. His hands were rougher. Stronger. His child had grown tall, curious, endlessly observant. Sometimes the child asked about the woman beneath the tree. Not with sadness. With respect. He told the story honestly, but gently. He described courage without glorifying pain. Love without romanticizing sacrifice. One evening, as cicadas sang loudly and the heat lingered on the skin, his child asked a question that landed deeper than expected. Did she regret it? He inhaled slowly. The air felt thick. Warm. No, he said after a long pause. But I think she wished she did not have to choose. The child nodded, processing that truth in silence. Later that night, alone again, he sat at the small desk by the window. The same one where he had written years before. The paper in front of him was blank. His chest felt tight. Not with grief. With responsibility. Because stories, once told, change the teller too. He realized something unsettling then. The village had healed. He had healed. But the world beyond still carried versions of love that demanded silence. Still asked people to disappear for the comfort of others. Still rewarded for getting over truth. That awareness stirred something restless inside him. Have you ever felt peace and unease at the same time? A week later, a visitor arrived. A man from far away. Polite. Measured. He had read the story. He wanted permission to share it more widely. To adapt it. Simplify it. Make it easier to consume. The words tasted wrong. He felt his shoulders tense. His jaw tightened. He imagined the woman's calm face from the photograph. The man's shadow that never touched her. No, he said firmly. The visitor blinked. Surprised. It could inspire many. It already does, he replied. By being exactly what it is. That night, doubt crept in. Quiet. Persistent. What if he was wrong? What if protecting the story meant limiting its reach? Sleep came late. He dreamed of roots again. Not tangled this time. Reaching outward. Breaking through soil. Searching for light. At dawn, he woke with clarity. The story was never meant to be owned. It was meant to be carried. He began inviting others to tell it in their own words. Artists. Teachers. Children. He did not correct them unless they changed the truth. He let the emotions differ. Let interpretations breathe. The story evolved, but its core remained intact. Unexpected action followed. The banyan tree was no longer avoided. It became a meeting place. A place where people shared their own hidden stories. Quiet confessions. Long-held regrets. Loves they never spoke aloud. The ground beneath it seemed to absorb the weight without collapsing. One afternoon, as rain threatened but never fell, he felt that familiar scent again. Faint. Gentle. Jasmine. He closed his eyes. This time, there was no heaviness. No ache. Only gratitude. He whispered softly, "We remember." The breeze moved through the leaves in response. Light. Playful. That night, as he lay beside his partner, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing, a thought settled peacefully in his mind. Some loves are buried to protect others. But the greatest love of all is the one that refuses to stay buried forever. And somewhere between past and future, he understood his role was never to end the story. Only to keep it honest. The years that followed felt like a long exhale. Not an escape from the past. An acceptance of it. The village no longer whispered. It remembered out loud. Children learned the story as something human, not sacred or tragic, but honest. Visitors came and went, carrying pieces of it back to their own lives. And slowly, without anyone announcing it, the banyan tree stopped being a monument to loss and became a symbol of courage. One evening, as the sky burned orange and purple, he stood beneath the tree alone. The air was warm. The cicadas quieted. His joints ached slightly now, a reminder of time passing. He placed his hand against the bark. Rough. Solid. Alive. For the first time, he did not feel her absence. He felt her peace. A memory surfaced. Not a vision. Not a voice. Just a simple truth. She had not stayed behind because she was weak. She stayed because someone had to believe that love was worth carrying forward, even if no one thanked her for it. His chest tightened. His eyes burned. But this time, he smiled. Later that night, sitting at the same desk where so much had begun, he wrote one final page. Not about the past. About the present. About a village that chose honesty over comfort. About a family that refused to inherit silence. About a love that waited 100 years, not to be celebrated, but to be understood. When he finished, he folded the page carefully and placed it inside the wooden box beneath the shrine. Not hidden. Just resting. Ready for whoever needed it next. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the leaves. His child ran ahead of him, laughing but fearless, barefoot on the same ground that once held secrets too heavy to name. He watched with a calm he had never known before. He realized then that closure does not arrive with answers. It arrives when questions no longer hurt. And that is how the story ended. Not with disappearance. Not with sacrifice. But with continuity. Because love does not ask to be remembered loudly. It only asks not to be erased. If you enjoyed this story, share it with someone who believes love always finds a way.